Today we're going to look at a Schoolboy opening that has recently been taking the chess world by storm. Well, it's kind of ironic because the name Guccio Pianissimo means very quiet Italian, but it has a little bit of bite, and we're going to be looking at the Schoolboy system of playing knight c3 rather than the more common trends of castles and putting the pawn on c3 that you more often see in GM games. And one nice part about this is that it's pretty easy to remember, and you can also get it from a few different move orders, like if they go knight f3, knight f6. Don't play knight c3. You don't want to run into the fork trick as such. But you play d3 and then knight c3, and you just end up transposing. And another nice thing about this sub is it actually works really well if black doesn't play bishop c5. For example, I think there was a game by the Australian IM James Morris recently where he played like knight c3 and a4. Just not allowing black to kind of go after our bishop, just making out hidey hole. And I think this is actually a very harmonious setup and active setup for white. And also another modern trend in these lines is to go h6, and a lot of GM's been trying to play this g5 attacking setup. But again, it just doesn't really work against the knight c3 setup. Like, you can just play a5, just play with the rook's pawns, and it's just very hard for black to get good counterplay with our knight being on c3. But let's now focus on the position after knight c3. If you're enjoying this video so far, do make sure to leave a like and also consider subscribing. If you tap the notification bell and set the settings to all, this will ensure that you won't miss out on any of my training videos moving forward. So after knight c3, black has a choice, where the move d6 is probably the one that you'll face the most often, but you do also have to be ready for other moves like castles. A6, a move that looks a bit weird but will make sense a bit later. And even the move h6 is one you'll also see quite a bit, which just avoids any ideas with bishop to g5. And yeah, like probably the moves that you guys are familiar with, if you have some knowledge of these positions, is to go bishop g5 and like try to go knight d5 and do the pin. And that can work against very inexperienced players, but against better players, I'm going to recommend playing knight a4. And even though it's a symmetrical position, we're already creating that little bit of an imbalance with the bishop versus knight. So that, for example, if they play bishop b6, as most of your opponents will do, yeah, even the move a3 is a nice little touch. We're just kind of not letting him win your bishop pair back. And I have to say castles, like it looks kind of quiet, but it does end up spicing up a little bit later. Like, so after rook e8, we can play like knight takes b6 is already a move. But we don't have to really worry about taking right away, because, like, let's say we play h3, for example. Bishop a5 just runs into b4 anyway, so it's not like their bishop is going anywhere. But after bishop b6, yeah, we can kind of just take and just sort of make this point that the black structure is just that little bit less flexible than ours. And that if they do play a move like knight d4, let's say, not just letting us, run over the pawns to the center, like, we can just go knight h2, and, like, our plan is going to be just to, kick their pieces back. Like, you go knight f1, kick the knight back, take the bishop, go f4, and we actually have a very legitimate attacking setup here as white, with the knight coming into f5. Such that a position like this, I think, is going to be somewhat easier for white to play. And yeah, it's true that black probably could improve a little bit over the last moves, but I think this gives a very good indication of what white is trying to do here. Sometimes I have this weird ring in my ears, I don't really know where it's coming from. So I'm going to move on to the next variation, if they castle. Yeah, I really like the approach of going for h3 in this case, and kind of just waiting for d6 before playing knight a4 again. And if they wait too long, you actually get some nice attacking ideas, like, for example, here, even a move like g4 is kind of interesting in some positions, although it tends to work a lot better when they play like h6, then g4 is actually going to be really strong. So against d6, yeah, you're probably best just playing like knight d5 and just building up the position like a little bit more steadily would be my suggestion. But yeah, castle, of course, going to be always a decent move for black. And yeah, I mean, there's a pretty wide choice. Like, you could also argue for like bishop g5 being a little bit more effective when they've castled. Because now, like, if they play g5, they're sort of weakening their king a lot more, which is sort of actually probably what I would recommend for you guys to play this way. Like, you can sack the knight, but you get this very strong attack in return, which is, yeah, very, very interesting to, play out this sort of attack as white. I think it's very tough for black to defend as well against the white threats. So that's sort of the disadvantage of castling. It makes bishop g5 better than usual. But if they play a move like a6, so a6 is clearly aimed against the move knight a4, but it's also a little bit committal, where we can play like knight d5 and, just trade off the knights, kind of just play for, like c3, h3, a4, and and d4. You can also play for b4 to expand on the queen side, but again, its position is going to be just a little bit easier for white to play. And finally, the move h6 is probably the best move for black, just stopping the whole bishop g5, not letting us play knight a4. But we do have a few good options against it. I think that castling's a nice move where, again, we wait for him to play d6 so we can go knight a4 and go after their bishop again. Kind of like we saw before, as it were. And if they castle, just trying to avoid it altogether. Well, we do have alternative plans, like you can play a move like h3, and if they keep insisting on not playing it, we kind of saw before this sort of position where bishop e3 can be a nice way to unbalance the structure where either you can take them or they take you, and you get this this nice attack on the king side with the open f file and the piece pointing this way. Like, objectively, black's probably fine here, but I do think it is quite a bit easier to play white. I realize this starting out video went slightly longer than the other ones, but I think this gives you a pretty good overview of how to play the position after knight c3. Let me know in the comments below, what was your favorite part of this training, and is there a particular opening you would like me to cover in the next one? Look forward to seeing your requests down below, and good luck with playing the Jucho Pianissimo in your own games. Take care and see you in the next one.